So, why do people choose to follow a leader? Well, contrary to popular belief, it's actually not often or not always a conscious decision. In fact, it goes far deeper than that. Leadership, as we've talked about, as we've defined it, is a social influence over others to maximize their efforts to achieve a common goal. Well, how does one, i.e. a leader, influence others? How do they gain their power? How do they ensure that followers follow them and decide to follow them? Well, it starts with a couple of psychologists. In 1959, two social psychologists, Doctors French and Raven, created or came up with 5 bases of power or sources of influence. The first one is called legitimate or position influence. And that is essentially by the virtue of the fact of your position. You are the chief, you are the captain, you are the director, you are the CEO. You have legitimate or position power. You have the white helmet. You have the power. You have the ability to influence others, and people will choose to follow you based on that. The second source of influence or source of power is coercive or discipline, where essentially what you're doing is you have the ability to leverage discipline or punishment over somebody else, so they're going to follow you. And we'll be diving into that a little bit later when we talk about toxic behaviors. The third source is what we call reward power, and it's just that. It's the ability to reward, and that's either through a kudos, good job, or maybe that's an award, or maybe that's a raise, something like that. The fourth one is expert power, and people choose to follow a leader based on expert power because they have a particular expertise or knowledge that is particularly important to achieve that common goal. So an example would be in the Thai cave rescue example that has occurred. Well, the divers have the expertise even though they may not be directly in charge. Or in a fire department, the hazmat crew will have what we call expert power. The technical rescue crew, even though they're the head of the team may not be a district chief or something like that, they have a high level of followership because they are the subject matter experts for a particular area. The fifth one is what was called by the two docs referent or respect power. And it is that power that is actually one we'll spend a lot of time on. And that is whereby I will follow you, or somebody decides to follow you because they have a great deal of respect for a particular leader. So let's tie this back into the examples that we've talked about previously with regard to prominent leaders. The positive attributes. Go through your list right now and identify how many are actually relative to referent or respect power. And specifically, of those positive attributes, which ones actually build respect? Which ones contribute to the respect? And I would suggest to you, without even seeing your list, that the reason they're positive is because they actually build respect. They actually show us that we matter as followers, for example. So if we were to look at, say, an attribute of a good communicator, for example, well, part of communication is listening. And we respect people that listen to us. We respect people that value our opinion. We respect people that don't micromanage, for example. So see how strong that respect piece works. And out of all of them, the position power, the coercive, or the reward, the expert power, and the respect power, the two strongest sources of power or sources of influence are expert and referent or respect. Now, keeping in mind that When I walk into a room, if I have a number of stripes on my shoulders, or I have the white helmet, or I have the, I'm the CEO desk placard, I automatically have power over you, and people recognize that. But frankly, that gets old really, really quick if you're consistently just relying on position power. So what we want to try to do is get as quickly as we can from position power to respect or referent power. And the reason for that is because if you look at it from a cognitive now to a subconscious level, respect power, respect influence, or reference is actually something that lives in our value system. It's something that we actually don't necessarily consciously think about. And the reason you pick those prominent leaders is probably because you respect them. Those attributes you talked about are actually things that contribute to the respect. And conversely, if we were to look at leaders that maybe weren't good leaders, they were bad leaders, their attributes would probably reflect lack of respect, taking respect away. So to be crystal clear, respect power, respect influence, referent influence is where we want to get to, particularly in emergency services where we're asking our followers to do an awful lot of things that are actually really, really dangerous. And yes, our teams will do that because we have a position power, but think about it. A team that is handled with respect, individuals on a team that are handled with respect, will not only do a good job, they'll do a great job. They'll actually start solving problems that you didn't even know you had. But herein lies the challenge. Because you know what? Respect, I've talked about how great it is. Here's the deal though. It's the hardest to get, and then we flip that around, it's the easiest to lose. It's the hardest to get, easiest to lose. So therein lies the challenge of leadership.